Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, it's time now to grab various feeds and slot them into our layout and style them according to our needs. We've got the Twitter feed to deal with, we've got the Flickr feed to deal with, and then of course we've got our slideshow, which is slightly different, but we'll do that as the very last thing. So the first one we're going to tackle is our Twitter feed. We're going to let somebody else do the hard work for us. We're going to go and grab a plugin, download it, and implement it very simply so that it churns out the Twitter feed, and of course we can then style it however we feel. I've already styled these list items here, of course, so it should just be a question of grabbing the plugin, letting it churn out a feed, and then it will already be styled for us. So the first thing we need to do in the case of our Twitter feed is actually go and grab the particular plugin that I'm using. There are millions of plugins, of course, that can do the job, but this is an example that I quite like because it's very straightforward, and it will simply output tweet feeds of various types into your web page. So go to tweet.seaofclouds.com and find yourself on the demo page. About halfway down you'll find the downloads, so we're just going to grab the download, and then I'm going to open it, unpack it, and I'm going to show it in Finder. Alright, now we need very little of this actually. We've got all kinds of things in this download, but really the only thing we're after is the JavaScript file itself. So I'm going to grab that and I'm just going to plonk it into our JavaScript folder. Simple as that. Now at the bottom of our index.html, this is where we're instantiating all our JavaScript bits and bobs. I'd like to first kick off by cleaning things up, because we've got a few things we're going to need to be doing here with the Twitter and the Flickr and all the various things. So instead of just piling everything in the bottom of the document, I think it would be in our interest to clean things up, put all our instantiation code in a separate file just to keep things nice and clean. So the first thing I'm going to do is open a new file in our JavaScript folder. Call it whatever you like. You can call it instantiation or plugins or whatever. I'm going to call it whatever, actually. I find that inspirational. So there we go, whatever.js. This is where we're going to put all our instantiation code. So first one, we can get this whole chunk out that was all for our responsive menu, if you recall. So we'll plonk that in straight away. We need to get rid of the script tags around it, and we need to comment in a slightly different way, of course. So that's going to be our first one, and I'll just shunt that all over, keep things tidy. Now I'm going to put my tweeting in at the top here. So using a snippet that I've taken directly from the website where we got the plugin, we have another document ready function. You can have as many of those as you like, of course, and it all gets processed in the same way. You don't necessarily need to use the longhand version here. You could just use jQuery function, and that will do the job as well. I'm not going to explain that to you because I'm not a jQuery ninja, so I'm going to point you to Jeffrey's screencast that he did recently, that whole course over on Tuts Plus Premium, and he explains extremely well using the jQuery source code to illustrate why the whole ready function comes about. So having said that, this is our function which is going to bring the whole thing together. We need to point to some kind of element where we're going to inject our tweets. So I need to go and put a div or something somewhere which has a class of tweet. That's what we're identifying here, and then we invoke this whole business here. And there are all kinds of attributes and parameters you can slot in there, including some loading text, which will come up while your tweets are being grabbed, and of course the amount of tweets that we want to display. And crucially, in our case, we're using a feed with the username, and that being Envato Web Design, which I'm sure you're following. So that's done. I'm going to save that. We need to actually make sure that our whatever.js is opened at the bottom there. So that's going to just comment this: instantiate JavaScript plugins. Okay, and then of course I need to pull in the jQuery tweet.js before I do so. So I'm just going to put this like so, and this was jQuery.tweet. Okay, so that keeps everything nice and neat, like so. So the last thing I needed to do, of course, was to add some kind of container with the class of tweet, where this whole thing is going to be injected. So onto our column where the Twitter is, and I'm going to put a div with a class of tweet. Simple as that. Save that and have a look in Chrome. Shut this down. Of course, you can come back to this site, which I'll link to underneath the screencast, and see all the various options which I haven't covered. So I'll close that, and oh, here ready and waiting for me, we have 3 tweets, perfectly styled, because all they are list items, just like the recent posts that we've already styled. And yeah, we don't need to style anything else other than that. It's all done nicely for us. What I do want to do is get rid of the dotted line, these stitches on the bottom of all these, on the bottom of these lists. So that's just one extra thing I'm going to take care of now in our CSS. Where did I have? Here we go. I had this one. So I'm just going to do that using the last child pseudo selector and background none to remove that. Okay, so that's got rid of the styling background on the last child of our unordered lists. Excellent. Okay, so that's good progress. Now we're going to need to do something very similar for our Flickr feed. So for that, we're going to use a plugin called Flickrush. Where are we? There we go. So get yourself over to the website by a guy called Philip Beale. So you load Philip, and very similarly, all we're going to do is grab a download. There it is, and I'm going to open that to unpack it. Oh, don't need to show it in Finder because it's already here for us. Again, I can use whatever I want out of here. I can use the package version, which is 1 KB instead of 2 KBs for the unpackaged version. Whichever you want to use is fine. So I'll just grab this. Again, plop this into our JavaScript folder. There we go. And I'm going to add that to the other plugins I'm using at the bottom of the page here. So this one's called Flickrush.js, and I'll save that. And then, just as with the tweets, I need to use a little bit of instantiation, and you can see here that in a similar fashion, all the demos are here for you to pick at and pull apart and use as you wish. So let's now just go and stick a little snippet in here. I'm going to hook this one up as well. Hook up Flickr feed, another document ready function, method, sorry, terminology, whatever. And yep, okay, once again you can see that I've targeted a div with Flickr, a class of Flickr. Actually, why do I have a full stop there? I'm not sure that should be there. And okay, I'm pulling in the various things here. This is an ID for Flickr, and that can be, it's kind of confusing because they're dictated by the way Yahoo handles things. If you want to find your Flickr ID and you're not entirely sure what it is, get yourself over to idgetter.com, where you can enter a username and click find, and it will pull out that ID number for you. I've just used the same ID that is used on this site. For the sake of argument, it's going to pull in six images for me. They're going to pull them randomly from that feed, and it's as simple as that. So let's now make sure that we have a div with an ID of Flickr in order to inject those photos into into our page. So where are we? Div with a class of Flickr. There we go. Save that and let's see what's happened. Oh, there we go. It's pulled in 6 images, and if we look at our PSD, according to Marty's design, we want those to be split into 2 columns of little square thumbnails with a border around them. So let's see if we can do something along those lines. That's going to require a little bit of styling, but nothing too complex. So off we go back into Coda and into our layout. Let's see, what do we have here? Well, firstly, it would be a good idea to see actually what kind of DOM structure this has been given. And as you can see, we have the div with the class of Flickr, which we defined, and then we've simply got 6 images that have just been injected in there, which is extremely simple. So nothing too complex. Let's just sort out some Flickr styles here. So we're going to target those images directly using the div with Flickr and then an image tag, like so. We want to float them, so we can get them into 2 columns. Let's put them as a width of 46%, which brings them to less than half the width, of course, with a margin of 2% all around. Of course, that's going to add 4% in total to the width, which takes the whole width up to 50%. So that's quite neat. Internet Explorer 7 is going to have problems with that, but we'll look at that in a video further down the line. Now padding, of course, which will also hiccup with Explorer 7, is going to be added to the inside of our element because of the, where are we, top of the document, the box sizing border box that we applied. You have to check out an earlier video if you need more explanation of that. So we've got a padding and then of course a border, which will also be added to the inside. So a solid border of that, take my word for that, and we'll have a background which is white, which will just give us that extra fat border around everything there. One thing it does need is some extra margin at the top, so we can add that to the div itself. Let's have a look. Div.flickr, and then I want to add some padding at the top of that, keeping in line with our baseline grid as always. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's important. Now let's increase that slightly. We'll use the element inspector to see how we can do that, and let's try 21. Alright, that's a bit neater. Okay, 21 it is. Alright, so we've made good progress there. That's kind of tidied up our whole footer. You can see that everything responds nicely as we make everything smaller. We can, well, let's see, we're going to have to pay some attention to this. You can see, of course, the headings that we did earlier are perfectly capable of dealing with a wider display. So now what I'd like to do for the wider of mobile devices, I'm going to make the bottom footer centrally aligned. So we haven't really done a great deal with our media queries yet, but this is the media query we need to be dealing with, a max width of 767 pixels, which handles mobile devices, landscape or portrait. So let's now just add some extra styling to our footer. So that was our footer. Where were we? We were in the bottom, weren't we? Bottom and then the footer, and we need text align center. So anything with a width up to 767 pixels will have a centrally aligned footer text, which is a lot neater. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so the next thing we really need to tackle is our slider. That's the next stage in this process. So join me in the next video, and that's what we'll do.